Hello everyone, my name's Henry, and I'd like to introduce you to Julie. Julie wants to buy a house. So she spent months on Rightmove and Zoopla, she's been to dozens of house viewings, she's finally found her dream home, and she's ready to move quickly. So she finds a lawyer. The lawyer goes away, finds all of the bits of information that might relate to this house. There's leases and deeds and all this big stack of papers. They put these papers in a room and go through them with a pen, start underlining anything that Julie might be concerned about with buying this property. So after a lot of time poring over these papers, the lawyer eventually files a risk report. So this basically just tells Julie whether or not she should go through with purchasing this property. So the process on the lawyer's end is very slow because it takes a lot of time, it's very labor intensive, and essentially this is a big problem because one of the biggest factors in property deals falling through is actually delays. And maybe some people in this room have actually experienced quite a lot of anguish due to delays in that sort of process. This is also very expensive, so if that report comes back at the end and says that Julie shouldn't buy the property, then she still has to pay the lawyer, the legal fees, and she goes home unhappy. This is also just not very transparent. So it's very frustrating for Julie because there's some potential roadblock that she's found out on week 12, which she probably should have found out on day 1. And this should really, this really should have been flagged earlier. So now I'm going to tell you how Orbital Witness are actually transforming the way that property law is done in the UK today, taking it away from this very archaic and old-fashioned approach to the more modern approach. So it's doing this by automating a lot of the legal assessment of land and property. And it's a small startup, but it's actually already got a platform that's really being valued by a lot of the largest global law firms in the world. And but for this to be much more of a consumer-facing product, and to help people like you and me, we have to somehow extract the information from these legal documents a lot like a lawyer does. So how do we extract this information from these documents? Well, what does that look like? So here we have an example of a document. It's a little bit grainy here, but so it's a big body of text. Within there's a lot of generic legal stuff, but there might be some very important stuff. For example, you should not use this for commercial purposes, which may be very important in some cases, or even something as strange as this land cannot be used to rear pigs, which might not be very important for you or I, but if you're a pig farmer, these are very important things to know about. So we can wrap all of these up in an umbrella, which we're going to call obligations. And so my first task, I set out to find these obligations within these documents. So as the first data scientist at Orbital Witness, this was quite challenging and posed a few challenges. And the first of which is to take these documents, and so they actually exist as PDFs already on the Orbital Witness platform, take those PDFs and extract the text data from them in a way that we can then read as a computer. So after a lot of data cleaning and figuring that out, we had to then do some data labeling. So there's not some big database of obligations out there for me to use. So actually, the first thing that I did at Orbital Witness was write a sort of application, which me and some colleagues could actually go on and manually label the data very, very quickly. So after we did that, we got a few thousand examples, which took some time, but it was OK. I did a lot of pre-processing, and then fed that into a machine learning model to basically predict whether a given piece of text was an obligation or not an obligation. And it did this surprisingly well, so with an accuracy of 85%, which was quite good, considering there was not a lot of data. It was not big data by any means. And so it was good enough for us to then start feeding in some documents and seeing what happened, basically. So what I did was I fed in hundreds of leases, so this is just one type of document, and I performed a clustering analysis on the outputs. So the things that it had predicted as being obligations, so I could basically cluster them out and see all these different themes. So in these different groups of obligations, you had things like that all sort of meant the same thing. So for example, no structural alterations should be made on the property, which would be very important if, say, Julie wanted to build an extension or knock down a parting wall or something. And then we can actually sit down and we can sit with a property lawyer and actually assess the risk of each one of these themes. And very importantly, we can now flag potential roadblocks automatically, given just the supporting the supporting documents of these properties. So this, combined with other data sets that we're going to sort of move on to in the future, we can fully automate the legal risk profiling of these real estate transactions, which in the short term saves thousands of hours for current Orbital Witness users, so they can focus on making these reports quicker and better. But very importantly, and much more importantly, it has the potential to really put the power back into the hands of home buyers. Because using this, the whole process for everyone involved is quicker, cheaper, and easier in a time when this really should be an exciting process rather than just annoying. So thank you very much.